All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Matthew. My name is Matthew. I'll be your host today for Ashton College's live online info session for our CAEL prep course. I'm joined today by one of the instructors, Ramin, and Rika, who is going to be handling the tech side of everything today and make sure nothing goes wrong, whether you're joining us over Facebook, whether you're joining us over Zoom, or maybe you're joining us in the future on YouTube. Hello, future viewers. On that note, we normally are also joined by somebody from our admissions department. However, today they were not able to make it and have just given Rika some information that they provide for us later. We'll get to that further on in our program, but let's get started. How are we doing, Ramin?
Thank you. How are you?
I'm
We
doing
had
all
a little bit
right.
of snow today, but now it's sunny out there, yes?
Oh, yeah, no, I was very scared when I saw it. I came out this way to avoid the snow. Yeah, yeah, I know.
Okay.
Here's hoping. It's not looking great this week. But anyway, could, could you share with us a little bit about your experience, your educational background, and what's brought you to teaching?
Okay, great. Yes. Well, to start with, I have to tell you that I've been teaching for about 20 years now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but before that, I was into engineering, believe it or not. But when I was in London studying there, um, I had to do some projects, and one of the projects was actually working for a school to produce or to manufacture a kind of device to help students learn English. And
Okay.
while doing that, I just got interested in what I was doing as helping the students learn. So later, I just, at some point in life, I studied teaching. So I got a master's in teaching English and a TESOL certificate. And I've taught several courses in test preparation like TOEFL IBT, LPI, CELPIP, CAEL, and many others.
Hey, it's like sounds of it. Like definitely interesting to hear somebody who's like started doing one thing, realized they wanted to do something, and then like sort of ran with it. And obviously, like you've taught them all. It sounds like basically, if it's a test of English language, you've probably taught a course on it.
Yeah, actually, I've done. I also taught at university, so I mean, some colleges, and so I taught testing as well, and also courses related to uh, differences between languages, comparative, as they call it, comparing languages and so on, comparative studies. Yeah, so yeah, for the past, I can say for the past 16 or 17 years, I've been teaching test preparation courses mainly.
Okay, right on. And that's actually related to what we're here for today, because we're going to talk about our kale,
Okay, great.
the our kale test prep course. Hopefully, I
Yeah.
don't trip over that again. So, for the benefit of those who don't know, what is the kale test, and how is it different from other English language tests like CELPIP or IELTS?
Well, CAEL is an academic test, so Canadian Academic English Language. And so the main purpose of this test is to somehow assess the English level of students or candidates to see how prepared they are to actually start a university course in Canada. And we can compare it with tests like the IELTS Academic or the TOEFL IBT. So they are somehow similar, and there are obviously some differences between them, but they're all testing relatively the same thing. What I can say about CAEL is that it's an integrated test as opposed to IELTS and similar to TOEFL IBT. Well, what it means is that when you're sitting for the listening section of the test, it's not just listening. You should also do some reading and speaking at the same time. So it's pretty much like the real life situation of a student, first year university student.
Yeah, it does sound like very practical focus. Like this is how it's going to show up once you're
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
Okay, and so is it, I'm assuming if it's Canadians in the name that it's taught in Canadian for Canadian English, and like what are some of the particularities of Canadian English compared to like other tests which might be written for British or American English?
Hmm. Well, I mean, for people who've been living and studying in Canada for a few months or years, definitely Canadian English is easier to understand if they're listening to someone speaking it. I mean, similar to American accent. Well, the British IELTS is mainly British, Australian, and well, some people may find it a little bit different. I'm not saying it's more difficult or it's easier. It pretty much depends on people's backgrounds and where they have learned English. And I mean, lower level students sometimes even don't notice the difference. Higher level students can tell the difference for sure, but at the same time, because of their um, command of English, they may not find it very difficult. I mean,
Hmm.
taking this test or the other.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a degree of preference based on what you're more familiar with, but if you've been
Yeah.
studying like
Mhm.
and working with Canadian English, this is probably the one you should be working towards.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So the program itself, we teach this in four separate modules.
Hmm.
So, where there's like a listening component, speaking component, reading, writing. Could you break down how this prep program is going to approach all these topics?
Oh, yeah, sure. The prep course that we have is in 4 modules, and it's a 100-hour course. So we can somehow guess that each module takes 25 hours.
One would assume.
And yeah, and I think the first one we're going to have is to start in April, or maybe there is something before that. So the 4 modules, the first module is definitely something to introduce the CAEL test to the candidates. Because just like any other test, it doesn't matter how much English you need to know how it is being tested. So if you have no idea of what the format of the test is, you may face a situation um, which you may end up not being able to show your real level of English. So definitely the first module is an introduction to the test itself. So students will receive some introduction, and so they get familiar with all the different parts of the writing, reading, listening, and speaking, the number of questions, how much time they have, the type of questions, and so on. In module 2, all these things are going to be discussed and studied in depth. So we will focus on certain question types and the tips and things that students or candidates need in order to be able to answer the question in a way that they can get the score that they really deserve. Module 3 introduces some strategies and techniques like brainstorming, time brainstorming, and being able to understand the difference between a strong argument and a weak argument, how to support something and how to make it stronger by using a better kind of language, I would say,
Hmm.
and using logic in order to support it. And obviously, there's vocabulary and grammar, the kind of things that are useful in this test. And module 4 is a bit more, I mean, dealing with some abstract ideas of the language. For example, how to, when you're listening, to be able to recognize the tone. And so by that, you would be able to find out what the speakers actually mean.
Hmm.
So that would be a little bit more abstract.
Okay.
Mhm.
So it's not just this is the listening, this is the speaking, this is the reading, this is the writing. It's sort of like taking all of them and slowly building how they connect a little bit.
Oh yes, definitely.
Yeah, no, which is definitely like you saying how like the CAEL tests everything kind of in conjunction. So that's definitely the
Mhm.
way you want to be doing it, rather than we're going to spend 25 hours on listening, then 25-hour in minute one. Now we talk only about speaking for the rest of the time
Oh
until we
no,
switch.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also because all these components of the test are integrated, it
Hmm.
is almost impossible to separate, let's say, for example, listening from reading and speaking from listening. So you have to read something and then talk about it. You have to listen to a lecture and then talk about it.
Okay.
And yeah.
Yeah. So, in your experience teaching, is there like a portion or a module of like this prep course that students tend to struggle with the most?
Well, it very much depends on the level of the students, and well, I would say that for some candidates, it's a little bit difficult to understand. For example, the intonation and what the
Hmm.
speakers mean by raising their voice or things like that. That may sound a little bit strange. And well, when it comes to writing, some students may not have enough experience, so they may find it a little bit difficult. And most students are not very fast when it comes to reading. So that's also another challenge.
Hmm. All right, makes sense.
Mhm.
So how many students typically enroll in this course, like on average, or in classes like these?
Yeah, we've had around 7, 8, 10. Yeah, that's the
Pretty nice
number that
small
we're
group.
usually. Yeah, not a very big one.
Oh yeah, no, and sort of spitballs into the next thing where I'm assuming once you get a group that size, it's a lot easier to start interacting with each other, like interact with you, like sort of like make sure everyone's heard, everyone gets to like speak up.
Yes, we've always had enough students to have a lot of interaction in the class so that it would not become boring. And at the same time, there are not too many of them so that we wouldn't be able to interact with each
Hmm.
person.
Yeah. So in classes, is there like a chat box function? Because I know we do them over like Zoom like this,
Oh, yeah.
or a discussion forum in
Yeah.
between?
Yes, yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
beautiful.
That's possible for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. All right.
I mean,
So,
students can they can type their questions or they can raise their hand and to come up with a
mhm.
question. Um, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, all right. Definitely sounds like if like it's a great way for like somebody to like have a pretty nice welcoming environment to work on this stuff because I know it can languages can be very intimidating to people even when they're better than they think they are.
Yeah, exactly.
Hmm. Yeah. So, will these courses include any practice exams while we're talking about features?
Oh, yes.
Hmm.
Each module includes practice tests, and there are some sample questions. So we will analyze the sample questions, and um, there's a lot of practice for sure.
Okay. And what are some of the benefits of doing these courses online? I mean, obviously this has been one heck of a year up to this point, but like in general, what are some of the like benefits of taking a class online?
Well, just this is also interesting because my thesis when I finished my master's was actually on online teaching.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that was a long time ago. So at that time, like something like 20 years ago, I was arguing that online teaching is beneficial and there are
Mhm.
a lot of advantages. At that time, maybe not so many people were always using social media and so on. So um, it was advantageous because people were exposed to a lot of written material and then they had to quickly find the things on this website and that website. So it helped them with skills like scanning and skimming, which are very useful in reading.
Mhm.
And again, within the past 5 years, I mean, before the COVID,
Yep.
yeah, I started teaching some online courses for students in Colombia and even here in Canada and elsewhere. And so obviously, things like saving time. You don't have to commute.
Hmm.
So instead of driving or being on public transit for 2 hours, you can use that time either to study or to relax or to have fun or whatever. That's obviously important. And then again, because of the COVID, this is the safest form of education these days, for sure. And the other thing is this, that because the CAEL test is an online test,
Hmm.
we're going to do pretty much the same thing. So we have all the materials on the computer, and candidates have it on their monitor, so they have to read things there, and they have to have this interaction with their computer. So it's pretty much the same as what they will be doing on the day of the test. Because I remember I was teaching TOEFL IBT classes, and TOEFL IBT is an online test, but
Hmm.
in class we were using books, paper.
Well,
Yes. So that was a
that's
little bit, yeah, strange. Yes.
yeah, like it's great because it's the same material, but like if you're preparing for it one way and then you sit down and it's presented a completely different way, there's going to be a hiccup even on a good day.
Yeah. When you have a book in front of you, you can underline some words, for example. But can you do the same thing on your monitor? No. So it's better to start preparing for the course, for the test, in the same way that you're going to take it. And nowadays, the majority of people are used to using computers and doing this kind of thing. So let's do it online.
Hey, makes sense. Yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
definitely like just this series of access and convenience, especially if like you have a full-time job or
Mhm.
you're working on something else a lot of the time, just not
Yeah,
having to worry about traveling to another thing.
exactly. Yes.
Yeah, no, definitely. But okay, obviously, like we talked about how like even working online helps you get a little bit more comfortable with the conditions of the test.
Hmm.
It's an online test, so teaching online makes a lot of sense. What are some of the best tips you have for staying efficient and completing the exam within the allotted time when you actually like sit down and do it?
Well, definitely. If you're planning to take the test, you're making this commitment, and you go and pay for it. So you have to follow the class and whatever we have. And because I remember sometimes, there are people who just register for the test, and they register for a course, but then they skip classes, and the closer they get to the day of the exam, they get frustrated and they start asking questions that, what do you think, will I be able to pass, and things like that. Well, just like any other test, you need to work for it, and you need to prepare. So the best tip is just stay committed and do all the homework and do practice tests, use all the things that are available around you, like radio, whatever, just to make sure that you're making the best of the environment in order to improve your English at the same time as you are learning about the format of the test.
Yeah, yeah, because like it's not just like the testing, because like for such maybe for like an academic test, like you can get away with just like learning all your vocab, learning all your obscure grammar rules, but like for the CAEL, what I'm not as familiar with it, but like from what I'm hearing with the way you describe it, like listening to stuff you hear on the radio, watching
Mhm.
English TV, all that stuff like just helps you get familiar with how it actually gets used.
Yes, exactly. Um, in part of the test, you have to listen to um, someone speaking, and then you have to talk about it. So one of the things that you can do in your real life is listening to the radio and just summarizing what you just heard.
Mhm.
So, these are all the things that people can do. Yeah.
Yeah, just flip on talk radio or documentary series, listen for a
Hmm.
little bit every like now and then. What was I just listening to? Boom.
Yes, exactly.
All right. And okay, that sort of like leads into my next question in a way, is we've already covered what students can do in their spare time to help them prepare, which is just
Mhm.
expose yourself to as much English as possible. But what advantages does taking a CAEL prep program like this one offer compared to self-study?
Yeah, that's an important thing because I know that many people just rely on their level of English and they just say, okay, this is just another test like IELTS and I've taken it before, or I've taken the TOEFL, so I can also take this one. Um, Definitely not knowing the format of the test is going to have a negative impact on their score. So this is an important thing. So if they want to do self-study, going on YouTube, for example, or just buying a book and studying on their own, well, it is not bad, but it's not enough for sure.
Mhm.
Because there are a lot of tricks and things that we have to discuss it in class. And also the thing is, for example, the requirements of different tests are different. Yeah, for example, maybe you have learned how to write a 5-paragraph essay,
Oh yeah.
but yeah, and when they talk about writing an essay, you just do the same thing. But this is definitely not what CELPIP requires, and this is not what CAEL wants,
Mhm.
and it's not what IELTS wants. Yeah, so um, knowing how to write a 5-paragraph essay is really good,
Mhm.
but you need to know how you should write for this test because of the kind of language that is going to be evaluated, and also the way that you have to argue, the way that you have to start, and so on. So that's what I think. Self-study, I mean, self-study is good provided that it's done alongside taking the course. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I mean, self-study, study a lot for sure.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. And it's like it's easy
Mhm.
to think you know something when you're on your own and then find out you don't know it on the test day in the middle of a question, which is probably the worst possible time to realize you don't know something. When you're working with somebody in a class like this, you can get most of that out of the way with a teacher or with your peers.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. For example, in IELTS writing task 1, you have to describe a graph. You only have to describe it. But then you have a similar thing in CAEL, but you don't. You should describe it and you should draw conclusions and you should make predictions. In the IELTS, if you draw conclusions and make predictions, you're going to lose marks. In CAEL, if you don't do it, you're going to lose marks. So yeah, you
Yeah,
have to know all these things.
two completely different like sets of expectations.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. And like this is why you should definitely prepare for the one that you're going to take. And okay, so that's leading into my next question now. Some people struggle a little bit in an exam environment. Are for the CAEL, are there any special accommodations for students to ease their experience?
Um, yeah, I mean, there are some online practice tests. There are some free practice tests. And also, my suggestion is that every now and then, Paragon is actually introducing some or offering some free tests where people can actually go and write the test at Paragon Center.
Okay.
And yeah, so that's something that will help them a lot.
Yeah. So okay, so it's more about being on the lookout for opportunities like that to help like deal with like exam jitters.
Hmm. Yeah, also taking the self-pip test is a good warm-up, I would say.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, because many areas are similar. I mean, the way that
Oh,
you have to
yeah.
take the test,
Yeah, no,
the
like
test center, and all these things. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it makes a lot of sense now that you're explaining it actually, like, because you'd think, but like, no, like the two Canadian tests, like, it does make a
Yeah.
little bit of sense.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, made by the same company, yeah, the same mentality, and pretty much the same way I mean, the same format, very much the same.
Yeah, okay. So let's pivot a little bit. Can you talk us through what an average exam prep class with you might look like? Or is there no average class with you?
Well, I mean, the prep class, well, definitely, what we do is introducing some parts of the test, so introducing the test format, and also working on how to respond, as I gave you that example for the
Yes,
speaking
yes,
part.
because
Yeah, I mean, for example, in the IELTS speaking test, you have to speak for 2 minutes, and you don't need to worry about a conclusion, because you just speak until they stop you. But here, you need to wrap it up. Yeah, so you need to know what to do. So we will practice that. So we will work on some tips. We will practice a lot, and also things like timed practice. That's very important, and timed brainstorming. So these are the things that we do in the average class. So online, we have people joining the class, and maybe we have some rooms so that we put students together to practice speaking, to do things together. So yeah, these are the things that usually happen in
yeah.
the class.
So like it's a little bit of mixture of everything. It's a little bit of like giving you a taste of what things look like, how to like
Yes.
sort of get used to everything.
Hmm.
Like definitely sounds like there's a lot. So like not necessarily an average class, but like a common like thing. Every time you show up, you're gonna get something that'll add to your toolkit that'll help you feel better on the test day.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, no, that's always a good thing because like definitely keeps things exciting when like 100 hours can feel like a bit of a slog before you start, but like when everything is going to be important and interesting and like fresh, that helps.
Yes, and also because all these test materials are based on the things that students face when they go to university, the first year of
Hmm.
university. So it's just like a sample of what they're going to see later.
Hmm.
I would say that, I mean, you can look at it as a test, but at the same time, uh, you will learn a lot of things because, well, this is what I'm going to face when I go to university. I'm going to attend a lecture, listen to a professor talking, and then I have to take notes, and then maybe the professor asks me a question, and then I have to answer back. Or they may ask me to, at the end of the class, they may want me to write a short report of what I learned that day. So all these things make this course really worthwhile. And during this preparation course, we will be doing the same kind of things. So I'd say, well, this is very much like the situation that people are going to face when they go to university. So we try to do the same thing in this preparation course.
Hmm. Right on.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's going to lead once more into my next question is, how can students continue to like work on their listening, reading, writing after completing these courses?
Yeah, I mean, something that happens during this course is providing candidates with a number of strategies and ideas to use and take advantage of what they have around them. So once they actually learn how to do timed brainstorming, then in their everyday life, in whatever decision they want to make, they start, or they can actually do this. That, oh, why should I do this? I should think of some reasons for doing this. And I have to think of some examples to support my reasons. So this way of thinking will become a part of their everyday life. And by transferring this into whatever they do every day, they can continue building up their skills. And there are also some standard study materials that you can purchase. There are some practice tests, as I said, there's sample tests, and also there are other test materials that are similar to this. For example, materials from the IELTS and so on. And they can look at those kind of things now from a different angle. So how they can use that in order to improve their skills and their English in order to take the CAEL.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Like once you start doing something, like any sort of material in that like sphere is going to be helpful to some degree.
Yes. And one more thing that happens during this course is that candidates actually meet other candidates. People with the same needs, with the same goals. And they can actually build up some kind of groups, study groups. Yeah, they can form some online study groups, and instead of just struggling with some materials and trying to study on their own, they can actually use the same kind of things that we use, like Zoom and so on, and contact another candidate and, let's say, practice speaking together, yes, or do some listening together, so they can motivate each other. And that happens during this course because they have no idea who else in town is taking the test. But when they take this preparation course, as I said, they will meet some other people with the same needs.
Okay, yep. I only have one or two questions left, so I was just checking the audience. If you are watching and you have a question, feel free to let us know. If it's something we can answer live, we'll do our best to. Looks like we had one that got answered about what days these classes are being held. So are they like every day, once a week? And I think that sort of depends on the module or how you look at it.
Yeah, we have to see what happens later. Yeah, in the past we had 3 or 4 days of the week, and we had 3-hour classes. So, yeah.
Yeah. It looks like each module is going to have a day of the week this time around as well. And so it's not like so yes and no to it being every day. Like you're doing a different module every day when each module is running, but you do have a class basically every day because of that, like on our current layout.
Yeah.
So yes, you will have a class every day, but it'll be a little bit of a different one.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully that helps, and hopefully that made some sense. If not, you can always contact our admissions people, and they can explain it in writing probably far better than me. Okay, so anyway, going to pivot back to the list of questions I had for us today. Okay, so we've talked a lot about what we're going to learn, some of the benefits of online learning, like your background, what we're going to be looking like. Obviously, there's a lot of prep material out there. There's a lot of different ways somebody could be learning. Why should students choose to take these courses with Ashton College?
Well, I would say the most important reason is that Ashton is using the curriculum which is designed by Paragon, and it is taught in an exact same way that Paragon wants it to be taught. So that for sure is very important. And also, I suppose Ashton is still a test center for CAEL, or yeah. So that's also good because, well, at one point you may go to the center itself. So
if you are in Vancouver, you
yeah,
just
you're
might.
in Vancouver. Yes, I mean in the past when we had classes at Ashton on Melville and Butte. So yeah, so actually it was. I mean the test center was, I think, on the 5th floor. Yes.
Something like that. I actually don't know the layout of that building.
Yeah. So I mean, going to the same place and dealing with the same kind of people, it helps. Yes.
Okay.
When you want to take the test. So.
Yep. Okay.
The test anxiety is somehow.
Yeah.
Controlled.
Okay. Got another audience question before we start like going into our final like knowledge announcements and housekeeping. So obviously, if you haven't taken this test before, you should probably start from module 1, do all 4 modules. Like that's the best way to prepare. We have an audience question here asking about what module is best for somebody who might have taken the CAEL before and maybe wants a refresher.
Oh, well, it depends on when they have taken the CAEL and what score they have, and in what areas they need more help. Yeah, so is it, for example, writing, or is it for listening? Yeah, so very much depends on that. And I'm not really sure this is something that maybe the admission knows better. It's whether it's possible to just take one of these modules, or
Yeah,
they have to register
I'm
for
not
all.
sure. Rika, did Maggie, our regular admissions person for these events, leave anything in her notes about that? Or is that a question for her?
Yeah, this might actually be a question for Maggie. Sorry, she's not able to join us
Mhm.
today. She's quite busy with all the registrations, looks like it. But yeah, I will definitely email this to her. It's a specific question from one of our attendees. Because yeah, like each module is different. Each module tackles a different aspect of the exam. So I should
Yeah,
better
yeah,
align.
no, that is a great question because again, obviously, if you haven't written the CAEL before, take them all in conjunction. This was you don't just do one, do all of them. But yeah, no, like for a specific situation, you're best off contacting your admissions team. For this, you'd be going for continuing education. Contact information for that has been left in chat, but I'm just going to say it now. You can email them at ceinfo@ashtoncollege.ca, or you can call them 604-891-1256. We're going to repeat that later, folks. If you missed that, don't you worry. All right. And then that's going to pull us back. So the last question I had for us today specifically is if there's anything you want to mention about the program or the CAEL test itself that we just haven't brought up so far.
Well, I think we covered almost everything, but well, maybe one more time I have to emphasize that relying on your English level is not enough. What you need to do is to make sure how the test is how the test is testing what you know. And this preparation course is really important because it walks you through the different parts of the test. And CAEL is, I can say it's a little bit complicated compared to IELTS, for example. IELTS is, when you look at the 4 parts of the test, everything seems to be very straightforward. But because CAEL is integrated, just like life, which is integrated.
I love that.
Yeah, so you have to practice it. Yes, you have to practice it and be prepared for it. So I would say this is a kind of preparation course that is essential and will really make a big difference.
Right on.
Hopefully.
Well, that's basically every question I have prepared for you today. We had some audience participation.
Great.
Rika, I can't see anyone who might have asked a question over Facebook. If there's one, please let us know. Otherwise, how about we just take a moment to go over like Maggie's information that she left for us today?
For sure. No questions over Facebook so far.
No worries.
But yeah, like we can talk about the registration requirements for the CAEL prep program. The entire program runs for 10 weeks. Each module, as you guys mentioned earlier, is 25 hours of instruction. For the registration fee, each module costs $250. Again, that is for each module. With regards to the schedule, module 1 runs from April 12 to July 12. Webinars are held on Mondays. And then module 2 runs from April 6 to June 29. Webinars are held for Tuesdays for module 2. For module 3, it's April 7 to June 30th. And that's Wednesdays for module 3. For module 4, the upcoming start date is April 8th to July 8th, and webinars are held on Thursdays. So just remember, module 1, Monday, module 2, Tuesday, module 3, Wednesdays, and module 4, Thursdays.
Friday off.
Friday is off, yeah.
Yes.
And for the schedule of the actual class, it's from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So that's 2 hours per week for each module.
All right, thank you. Maggie, we appreciate it, even though you couldn't make it today. Thank you, Rika. All right. Yeah, no, not sounds like we've managed to go over everything we had prepped. If you are watching this and you have any questions that we have not been able to answer, I'm going to give anyone one last second to mention any questions they might have for us. Otherwise, if you have anything further that's going to pop into your head after today's session ends, or if you sign off and you're like, darn it, I have a question now, don't worry, you can still get in touch with us. You can email us anytime at ceinfo@ashtoncollege.ca, ceinfo@ashtoncollege.ca, or you can call 604-891-1256. That's 604-891-1256. And we have a toll-free number as well, 1-866-759-6006.